Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Toss Up. I'm Riley Woodall. We have another exclusive interview for you here on the show. JC brought in a veteran from the gridiron. This time, we've got a warrior from the Resolite. College wrestling has never been better, and national interest in the sport is at an all-time high. With the new rule changes promoting more offense and the fastest growing sport in America, women's wrestling getting approved as the NCAA's 91st championship sport, college wrestling is finally getting its flowers. And here to talk about the state of wrestling as well as his incredible journey from high school to Columbia to Indiana is Hoosier 133-pounder Angelo Rini. Angelo, thanks for coming on the show to talk. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm in Hoosier country right now, which is kind of surreal. I've been here for, like 6 months now, but I'm liking it. I like that warrior from the Resolite reference. That was cool.
Yep, you got to have it, man. So we'll jump right into it. You mentioned it, 6 months here. What's the best part that you've experienced in these 6 months of getting to wrestle in the Big Ten?
The Big Ten's so cool. Yeah, you get kind of and all the resources you need to be successful. Yesterday, I got a massage. Tomorrow, we're supposed to go to hot yoga for recovery. So they treat us so well here. And before every match, we get a steak. After every match, we get a steak from Longhorn Steakhouse. So
they're taking care of you.
They're taking care of us big time, and it's really like, any resource we need, we got, but the thing is, we also got to be successful because of it. So, yeah.
So you've gotten to also wrestle. You've gotten to wrestle Big Ten opponents before, but this time you're wrestling as a Big Ten wrestler yourself against those guys. What's that feeling like?
Yeah, I think it's more enjoyable for me. It's definitely, I guess it's a little bit of pressure because you're wrestling like top 10 ranked guys every weekend, but the crowds are unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't think wrestling could get so exciting, but when you're wrestling in like a Big Ten gymnasium, it's so cool to like hear fans say three or just yelling and screaming their heads off. It's so cool. Whether you win or lose, I think it's just so cool.
What's been the biggest adjustment and learning curve for you? You wrestled in the EIWA, which is another tough wrestling conference, but what has that transition been like, and what have you had to learn and adjust to wrestling now in the premier wrestling conference, the Big Ten?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, every weekend you're kind of wrestling a top-ranked opponent. When I was wrestling the EIWA, it's still a pretty tough conference, but I'd have people from like ranked 30 to 15, whereas every weekend now I'm seeing guys ranked like this year alone, I've wrestled the 1, 2, and 3 ranked guys in the country. Mm-hmm. So it's just adjusting to a little bit of a higher level, which is something that I haven't had such a hard time adjusting for. I've been ready for it, I think, and I've lost to some really good guys, but it's also my job to be able to recorrect and eventually beat those guys when championship season comes.
So you're towards the tail end of your career, but I want to take a trip down memory lane first. From what you can remember, when did you first start wrestling, and when was the moment that you can point to where you were like, man, I really love this sport?
Yeah, that's a good question. I remember in kindergarten or something, I brought in like my wrestling shoes for show and tell. So I think like kindergarten
Nice.
or like first grade or
Nice.
something like that. And my dad wrestled. He was a good wrestler in Ohio. So I feel like most guys get into wrestling through their dads because you see like people playing football and basketball on TV, and you can do the alternative, which is like wear a singlet and go wrestle. And so, yeah, my dad got me into it, and me and my brother went to our first practice. My dad asked my brother if he liked it, and my brother goes, "No, it stunk in there." and my dad was like, "All right, Angelo, what about you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess it wasn't so bad." So I don't know when I really fell in love with it, but I've kind of always been like attracted to the sport.
I love it. So you wrestled at St. Edward's High School in Kirtland, Ohio. 3-time state placer, 2019 junior national champion in freestyle. The list goes on, right? You had a very long list of accolades in high school, very impressive prep career. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between wanting to wrestle in college and feeling like you can wrestle in college. When did the prospect of wrestling collegiately become a reality for you?
Yeah. I would say, so St. Ed's is a really good high school wrestling program, kind of like Crown Point, as we were talking about earlier. Crown Point's a really good school, so you go to St. Ed's to be a really good wrestler. So a lot of my peers were like the upperclassmen are always going to cool colleges. So it was kind of like right when I got to St. Ed's, I knew I wanted to go wrestle in college. But to be honest, you mentioned my accolades, and although they are really good, I also tended to fly under the radar in high school. And it's not because, my accolades weren't what a college wrestler should have, but my peers were just like, my teammates were having really, really good success. So the colleges recruiting from St. Ed's really wanted my teammates. And so I kind of flew under the radar. So I got recruited by a lot of Ivy League schools, particularly Columbia, and they really wanted me. And it felt good to be wanted. So I think that's what drew me to going to Columbia. And I was also kind of a guy that got good grades. So
yeah,
I think
doing well on the mat and in the classroom.
Yeah, so it's kind of a good fit.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Columbia. That was a school that wanted you to come wrestle for them. What went into that process of committing to Columbia and wanting to wrestle as a Lion? You mentioned a little bit that was a school that wanted you. You got good grades. What was that whole process like for you?
Yeah, so like I said, I wasn't highly sought after, but the Columbia coach, Zach Tonelli, he came to wrestle me in our high school room, and he absolutely kicked the crap out of me. And I was like, okay, this dude's a bad dude. Like, if he's going to be my wrestling partner, I'm going to get better going to Columbia. So somewhere where I can accomplish my wrestling goals. It's a great school. Obviously, I'll get a great degree. It was in New York City. A lot of people don't know this, but Columbia is in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So when I took my official visit, I'm from a small town in Kirtland, Ohio. When I took my official visit to New York City, I was like, wow, this is like an experience. This isn't like, you don't just pay tuition to get a good degree and wrestle. You also get the experience of living in New York City for 4 years. So it was cool. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges moving from high school wrestling to college wrestling that a lot of young athletes maybe don't think about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say the level of toughness is different. In college, you need like 3 moves, and that's it. And you need to be really good at 3 moves. In high school, you can go against your opponent and like hit this new move that your coach taught you, and maybe it'll be like a little flashy move or whatever. Or maybe you can go in high school and run through your opponents using all these different slick moves. But in college, you kind of just need like 3 moves, and you need to be really good at them. Like, if you think of all the good wrestlers like Jordan Burroughs, you know what move he does. Bo Nickel, yeah. He's a kind of anomaly. He would throw the kitchen sink at you sometimes.
Yeah.
But Jordan Burroughs, he's going to double leg you off the mat. So, yeah, you need to be good at like 3 moves, and I'd say you're good.
So you had a very, very successful career at Columbia, 66-39 in your career there as a Lion. You got 7th and 3rd at the IWAs, a couple of years that you were there as well. What was seeing your development and going on that journey like for you?
Yeah, so I think the thing that I'm just most proud of is that I keep getting better every year. So, I took 7th my freshman year, then took 3rd, which, is all good, but I'm just happy that I continue to get better and I continue to love the sport more and more. So it's not necessarily for me the success. It's more just being able to, have a lot of fun wrestling and make a lot of friends is something that I really cherish. And so it's not necessarily like winning and taking 7th, taking 3rd, going to nationals. It's more about just like, just the more holistic part of it where I'm having fun and making new friends.
One more question before we go to break, Angelo. You're following in the footsteps of Dan Fongaro, who wrestled at Columbia and then transferred to IU and wrestled as Hoosier. Last year, you're now doing the exact same thing, and you've been very successful in a Hoosier singlet. You're a bonus point machine. But at the tail end of last year, you're also going through rehabbing the injury that you had that kind of robbed you of the rest of the season you had last year. And you're also making the decision to transfer to IU. What went into that process, and why IU? What did you learn about yourself going through that entire process?
Yeah, so I got hurt last year. I needed knee surgery. So in my right knee, there's probably like an incision about like this big in my knee. I can show you the scar after. It's nasty. I actually will show you. It's nasty.
Oh, man, I bet.
But yeah, so I got So in the Ivy League, you can't compete as a master's student.
Right.
So I kind of needed to transfer. So I graduated, and I needed to transfer if I wanted to wrestle. And Angelo Escobedo, our head coach, texted me. He said, "Hey, come check us out. You also get to see your good friend Dan Fungaro." And I was like, "Say less." I was like, "Let's do this thing." And I think, so 2 reasons what really attracted me to IU. First, our head coach, Angelo Escobedo. He was a 4-time All-American and a national champ at IU.
Program's only 4-time All-American.
Yeah, exactly. So if anybody knows how to be a good wrestler using the resources that IU has, it's going to be Angelo Escobedo. And he gets on the mat with me still, and which is even more impressive, he's 30-some years old, every day getting more and more out of his prime of wrestling as I'm getting more and more in my prime, and he's still kicking my butt and pushing me really hard, doing all our workouts. So I think Angel's very admirable, and he's even like a CEO, I feel like, of this program. He has us making sure that we're healthy, that we're strong with our weight. He's fundraising, he's doing all sorts of things, and he's making sure we have everything, like our steaks and our massages. So, and then he's also, like I said, I don't necessarily care as much about the results, and he's someone that doesn't really, he just wants us to be like good men, having fun, and being able to develop our values as men is really what he wants. So, yeah, to wrap my answer up, it would be Angelo Escobedo. And the second thing that drew me was continuing the trend of getting a good wrestling career and also a good education. So I'm doing my Master's of Finance at Kelly School of Business. So that was kind of like the cherry on top, I feel like, of coming to IU.
Good for you. Well, man, they're happy to have you. They certainly are. You're doing phenomenally well. Stick around. Angelo and I will be back right after this.
The Toss-Up, Fridays on IUSTV.
Welcome back to the Toss-Up. I'm joined once again by Indiana's 133-pounder Angelo Rini. Angelo, we're going to do a little bit of a tone shift because I want to talk a little bit more about the mental aspects of the sport and the new changes that are going on in college wrestling and wrestling in general right now. So I'll start you with this one. Which one do you think is more important in a wrestler? Which trait, toughness or patience?
I'd like to ask this one to you too, because you were also a really good wrestler in high school.
In high school, by the way. Can't do what he's doing, but I did wrestle in high school, but he's much better.
Yeah, so I'll give my thoughts. I think toughness is more important. When it boils down to it, you need to be tough to be a college wrestler, or to be a wrestler in general. And then I think as you have your base of being tough, then you can kind of, you already calloused your mind and your body. So now you need patience, but I think it starts at toughness to begin with. You can't go to practice every day, when you can be playing Fortnite or Call of Duty instead. Like, you got to be tough if you want to go to practice every day, and then you can learn patience and all that stuff. But I think toughness is most important.
I agree. I think you need that foundation in particular because, in my opinion, I think toughness beats talent every single day.
Yeah.
The wrestler that's more gritty is usually going to end up winning the match. I've heard Fortnite and video games thrown around a lot on the team. I gotta ask you this: where do you stack up in terms of the team leaderboard in Fortnite wins?
Oh man, I don't think some guys on the team are so good.
Yeah,
so good. Like Call of Duty specifically right now. Like, they got all their skins.
Yeah.
Diamond or whatever they are.
Yeah. And you're just
I'm probably like just trying to have fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's usually the best.
Some guys are just so good.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm curious to hear what your advice would be to other wrestlers, younger wrestlers in general, in terms of dealing with the mental aspect of the sport. How do you get your mind right for what is essentially going out there for a fight?
Yeah, this is something I feel like every wrestler, wrestles with this. No pun intended, but wrestles with this in their brain a little bit. For me, what's been working right now and kind of what has been working in the past is not using your mind. So what I mean by that is, you train, we wrestle like 2+ hours every single day and work out constantly. Like, when you go out and wrestle, your body's going to know what to do. And a lot of times we kind of slow down what we want our body to do through our thoughts, and we get anxious and we tighten up. So I think you just gotta, when you go out and compete, you kind of just gotta throw your mind somewhere else and just let your body take over. So I think in practice, use your mind, grow in different positions and stuff like that. But when it's time to compete, just tap into the other intelligence you have, which is like the intelligence of your body, and let your mind think after the match.
I like it. I like that advice. We're in a new age of college sports, NIL,
Yeah.
transfer portal, the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many monumental changes coming to all of collegiate sports. As an athlete, what's your experience been navigating NIL, transfer portal, all these different changes that are coming to collegiate athletics?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it is kind of different for me and my perspective because, like I said, I'm coming from Columbia. We can't wrestle as master's students in the Ivy League. So during COVID, when I say we, me and the senior class at Columbia all needed a different place to wrestle. So there were like seven of us from Columbia last year that had to enter to the transfer portal and use their last year of eligibility somewhere else. So we were on the portal. We were all looking to go to different schools. And the other thing is that at the Ivy League, they don't give out scholarships, so we all had student loans.
Right.
So pretty much around the board, whether you were, an NCAA qualifier or not even a starter, all the kind of, in wrestling at least, the coaches just wanted to help with like giving you a little bit to go and live somewhere or enough so you can have like a dining plan or a meal, something like that. So nothing monumental. It is changing though, however. I just saw Bo Bassett commit to Iowa for like $5 million. I don't know if that's true or not, but
right.
If it is true, I think it's great for, obviously Bo, but I think it means more money is being invested into wrestling, which I think is a win for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. There's been a lot of changes coming to the sport as a whole. There's a lot more national attention surrounding it, particularly, as I mentioned in the open, the addition of women's college wrestling as the NCAA's 91st championship sport. The three-point takedown was made a thing last year. That's promoted a lot more offense, hoping to draw more eyes to the game as well. I asked you about it. You love it. How does the sport of wrestling, in your opinion, continue to grow and gain popularity among other sports fans?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think, the three-point takedown helps. It helps me, too, because I like to score a lot of points.
Yeah, like wrestling on your feet. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. I think the addition of women's wrestling is huge because wrestling, to me, is such a great sport because, anybody can do it. There's weight classes. You can be a tiny guy. You can be a big guy. You can be a boy or a girl. You don't need to be like 6 feet tall like a basketball player or a football player. You need to be like 300 pounds. So anybody can wrestle, and you can be a man, a woman. You can be tiny. You can be huge. So I think that's another thing that will draw more people in because anybody can be really good. Like there was Anthony Robles, a documentary just came out on him. He won the national tournament with one freaking leg. Like what other sport can you do where you can win at that high of a level with like something like that?
So inspirational.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. A couple more questions for you. What, in your opinion, makes wrestling different from other sports? There's a lot.
There's a lot.
But in your opinion, what makes wrestling different?
Oh, man. I think wrestling's like one of the only sports where you always got to be ready because if you're not, you're going to get your butt kicked in front of so many people.
Right.
So you kind of always just got to be prepared for what's coming next. And same thing for life. Like I feel like it prepares you well for life because you always got to be prepared for, whatever is going to come next. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get beat up, and you just kind of got to keep getting up and pushing through.
Yeah. Last question for you, Angelo. What can we expect from you and Indiana wrestling coming down the stretch? You wrestle Ohio State, then Nebraska, and then you go to Chattanooga before the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. What can fans expect from you and this squad?
Well, one thing about our squad is we're getting better every single week. Maybe we didn't start out cold, but even if we did start out on a bad note, we've continually to grow every single week. And that's scary because if you're going every single week, that means you're going to be, one of the well-positioned teams to make a really good run for it in Big Ten tournament and nationals. So we're ranked 22nd as a team right now. We're going to continue that momentum, and we're going to, take every opportunity we can get. We got Ohio State this weekend and then Nebraska, like you said. So we're just going to take it week by week and wrestle as hard as we can. And when we do that, good things are going to happen. So if I were to put a number on it, we haven't had an All-American, and I forget when our last All-American was, but we're going to be putting multiple on the podium this year, I think.
There you go. That's a promise to you, Hoosier Nation. Take note. Angelo, Rini, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming in to talk.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That'll do it for the show this week. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSTV Sports. And while you're at it, give our Toss-Up socials a follow on those same platforms as well. Catch Indiana Wrestling in action against the Ohio State Buckeyes this Sunday on Big Ten Plus. With that, there's one thing left to do, so toss it up, find out if we'll catch it, and as always, we'll see you next week. God bless, everyone.
Thanks for watching IUSTV Sports. Be sure to subscribe at IUSTV and follow us on Instagram and X at IUSTV Sports.